Hello, I'm Suzanne Bethell. I'm a painter and printmaker who enjoys combining these processes. I also construct assemblages from elements of my previous artwork. My art tends to be intuitive and experimental, diverse in scale and media. I'm currently in my studio, which is in Compstle in Greater Manchester, and I'm going to tell you about my inspiration for my artwork, my practice over time, and a little about the work I've submitted for Flourish.
In the last 6 years, I've experimented with block relief printing and collagraphs, monoprinting created through layering ink onto perspex, and mixed media screen print monotypes, taking a complete printmaker course and many short courses, including with the printmaker Catherine Jones and painters such as Gareth Edwards from the St Ives School, to top up skills. Most of my prints are monotypes or monoprints in series, because I enjoy experimenting and I want to create something new each time. What I love about printmaking is the indirectness, the excitement of the reveal as the print is peeled from the plate or the screen lifted from the bed. Largely self-taught until taking a sabbatical from my lecturing role in 2000 to complete a foundation in art and design, my work has been experimental and diverse, changing significantly over time. Prior to 2000, I was largely creating A1 size still lifes, forest, fruits and flower scenes. Early printmaking included collagraphs and small-scale etchings. I've been exhibiting since the 1990s. My first solo exhibition was at the Pankhurst Centre in Manchester, and I was subsequently involved in several exhibitions at Warrington Art Gallery. In 2018, I exhibited in the Open at the Royal Scottish Academy, Edinburgh, and was a finalist at the inaugural Home exhibition in Manchester earlier this year. I'm represented by the Porthminster Gallery, St Ives, and Kinart Gallery, Manchester. There have been multifarious global, contemporary and historical influences over time, including writers and poets. Artists whose influence persists generally have a strong colour focus, and many paint and print with the processes becoming integral. For instance, Patrick Heron, Bruce MacLean, Barbara Ray. I love her painterly techniques with screen print, drawing into the work and onto the screen, and the sheer joy of colour in Albert Irvin's work. I was blown away when I saw the work of Sally Gabori, an Aboriginal painter, in Sydney in 2017. The scale, energy and sheer exorbitant colour which instantly delights. The Vivian Suter exhibition at Tate Liverpool just before lockdown was an inspiration. I often choose to use shapes similar to those she uses. Since 2000, my work has been mainly abstract or semi-abstract. Experimental in terms of scale and media, I often work intuitively. However, there remain some constants. Colour, its potential to excite the eye, engage the heart, and awaken the soul is central. The colours I use, both consciously and unconsciously, are indicators of the influence of life experiences. Inspiration arrives from a sense of place, a sense of time, or a desire to invoke a particular emotional response. Following a trip to Kenya in 2014, a series in oil entitled Circles Unbound included rich earth reds, deep burning oranges, intense cadmium yellows and muddy ochres, reflecting the colours of the Savo Plains, the vibrancy of African textiles and a sense of freedom. These pieces formed half a solo exhibition in High Peak, coupled with a variety of block relief and collagraph prints. The ways in which painting feeds into print and vice versa can be seen here in Circles Unbound, especially number 4, which led into creating Fruit Bowls collagraphs. Also, there are glimpses of the earliest elements of the urban series in the Eclipse block reliefs here. The focus on the square and square images can be seen in paintings here too, which have the feel of prints. Later, I was to create a series in print, Serenity of Square Pink 1, 2 and 3, and these were created by layering inks onto perspex. I'm interested in the power of colour to alter mood and mind state. The work of Joseph Olbers, exploring the ways in which colours interact with each other, and research which proposes that there exists a universal visual language of mark and line which can induce particular emotional responses. The Prussian Blue series, inspired by a sense of time, created as autumn faded into winter, maximised upon the capacity of blues to be calming and meditative, reinforced in some by a fluid, gentle horizontal, a line according to Betty Edwards and her small-scale qualitative research, which can be read as tranquil. This is a particular interest, the idea of a universal language of mark making, which artists employ, often unconsciously, together with specific colours to evoke particular emotive responses. Hopefully, a meditative quality is achieved through the use of deep and shallow undefined bands of colour, creating soft repeating irregular horizontals. This work evolved from a summer series, in which reds, yellows and hot whites predominate, colours reminiscent of searing heat, sand and sunsets. The urban series grew out of fizz, jazz and Indian memory monoprints. I began to use neons for the first time. In fact, city jazz perhaps illustrates this emerging relationship most clearly. The early urban pieces were static and incorporated geometric shapes, squares, circles and rectangles overlaid by meshes, nets, columns and pillars. I love Manchester, and the work has been loosely inspired by architecturally exciting regeneration areas of Manchester, such as New Islington and Ancoats, the nightlife and street art of the Northern Quarter, which is where some pieces were originally shown. I hope the neons would capture a sense of the vibrancy of club life, spheres of reflected lights glinting in Manchester's glowing nights and rain. The spiralling marks a nod to street art. The collage material, with its metallic, on some, reference urban glass and steel, facades and grilles. Each piece is unique, although particular shapes and motifs reappear in varied positions and combinations. Each has been created by a layering of shapes, images and colours using frisk and photoemulsion stencils, created from hand-painted and found material, together with the collage elements which have become integral through overprinting. It's an intuitive, constructive process as the image emerges from the pull. There's a pause, a waiting to get a feel for what next, fired by the excitement of discovery as each new layer transforms the previous. As you notice, work usually takes the form of a series which has its own momentum and can be made over a month as with Jazz and Fizz, or over a much longer period as with the Urban series, until it reaches its own conclusion. The Urban series grew out of Jazz and Fizz, which in turn evolved the Victoria Bath series, developed in April for a physical exhibition, which was swiftly reimagined and adapted for online viewing in response to the pandemic. Originally responding to the colours and surfaces of this iconic building in Manchester, initially creating tiles that directly reflected this, the work began to morph into assemblages, informed by the materials of construction and restoration. It began to incorporate elements of meshes and columns, evident in the Urban series, but extending beyond, maximising on the potential assemblages offered to experiment with diverse materials. And so one series comes to harbour the seeds of the next creative direction, although conscious awareness of this may only arise when the new project is flourishing, and reflection provides insight, sometimes in a gestalt moment. And so what next? During lockdown I've been busy painting. As lockdown began to ease in May, inspired by the work of Sally Gabori, I began to paint, referencing journeying. And so we begin to move freely. 120 centimetres by 68 is one of another ongoing series. Additional lockdown work can be seen on my website. Now able to revisit Hotbed Press, of which I'm a member, the mark making of the journeying work is influencing my screen printing as I experiment with drawing on the screen with crayon. The Urban series is currently exhibited in a solo show called Mesh at the Pilcrow Pub in Manchester. Many thanks for listening, and many thanks again to West Yorkshire Print for this fantastic opportunity.